Hi guys, it's Chaplain Ken again. This is step 2 of recovery. We're going through the 12 steps of recovery, and you are here with me with Time with Chaplain Ken, and I'm glad that you come along and have been enjoying the journey. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the appropriate places. If you want to subscribe and share and do all that stuff with the video, fine. Be my guest. If you want to copy it and paste it, you want to use it at work, you want to do whatever you want to do with it, within reason, of course. Feel free to use these things to help somebody else. Just don't do anything heinous with my pictures, okay? Alrighty, so today in recovery, we're looking at step 2. We already processed step 1. Remember last week, we talked about being powerless. Are you still powerless today? And the reason I ask that question is because if we're not powerless today, what's the point of going on in steps 2 and 3 and so on and so forth? When we're looking at recovery, it's a good idea to practice step 1 daily, to remind yourself that you're powerless. Because the decision you make today will influence the way you behave and the decisions you make for the rest of the day. So if you wake up early in the morning and you want to start off your day with reminding yourself that you're powerless, and even going through the list of all the consequences that you've suffered because of you drinking or drugging, be my guest. Put that list on the mirror in the bathroom, put it on the refrigerator, put it on your phone, whatever it is, wherever it is, and you want to plaster it on your wall somewhere, I don't care. Whatever it is that reminds you that you're powerless, that can keep your eye open to the reality that you are powerless, is always a good thing, because it's not to subjugate yourself or not to demean yourself. It is just to remind you, because we are creatures of habit, and it is easy for us to take back control of our lives. And remember, your addiction are your best efforts at controlling your life. That's where you ended up. So be mindful that when you're in large and in charge, your addiction is going to be alive and well in you. So the moment you can say, you know what, I'm powerless, I need some help, then you're off on a good start. Step 2 says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Again, this is an important step, but this is a crucial, very foundational, very basic step I want you to consider today. So after you become intentional about being powerless and you've made that decision, step 2 comes into play, and you begin to read this thing and you say, wait a minute. Came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. This sounds too much like church, Ken. Well, yes and no. It can, but it doesn't have to be. All right. Consider something before you, go a little bit too crazy on this idea of being powerless and a higher power. Consider that there already is a power that's greater than you. And what do you think that is? It's your addiction. It's your drug of choice, isn't it? Your drug of choice is taking you down a road that you never thought you'd ever go down, hasn't it? This power that has been in control of your life and has been wrecking your life day in and day out has gotten into your head, into your heart, into your physical body, and it is controlling every aspect of who you are and using it against you and ruining your life. And you have completely surrendered to your drug of choice, haven't you? You have. Well, now's the opportunity and the time for you to be able to take back control, so to speak. And that is by recognizing that there is a power greater than you that can help you. You've surrendered your life and will to the care of your addiction for many, many years, and it has not helped you. It has been destroying you. And now there's an opportunity for you to realize and remember and believe that there is a power that's greater than you and greater than you and your addiction combined. But let's go back a little bit more over being powerless, or recognizing the power that's greater than you. There are lots of powers that are already in the world that you've subjected your life to at times. The judge is more powerful than you are. That officer is more powerful than you are. The court system is more powerful. The jailer is. Sometimes it's the spouse is more powerful than you are. Depending on what kind of marriage you have. There's a lot of things that are more powerful than we are. The wind, rain, thunder, lightning, earthquakes. Lots of things that are more powerful than we are. When we come to the idea that we have all the power in the world that we need, good luck with that. Keep trying, man. Check it out and see how far you can get with that idea. and how you can run with it and how it can better your life by staying in control of yourself. So what keeps you from seeing that you're powerless to your addiction? What is it? We talked a little bit about pride the last time we were together in the last video. Pride will keep you from seeing the reality of what's going on with you. Pride will, in your ego, will keep you from admitting it and accepting what's really happening in your life. Your intellect can also be a roadblock to finding good recovery, or at least seeing the reality of what is in your life. Your own intellect. You're too smart for this thing. Weak people say this kind of thing, that I'm powerless and that there's a power greater than me, and that that I can use to find recovery. It's those people that they need it as a crutch. Use whatever words you need to use. Maybe it's just flat out, plain out rebellion in your life where you don't want to give in to anything. But like I said before, you already have. You already have a power in your life that's greater than you. And you've allowed it to change and run and rule your life. So don't think it's such a mystery. When we're looking at step 2, we've done it all along. And we have even done step 3, but we'll get into that next time. So let's look at some aspects. The literature talks about 3 types of people when they come to AA and they go to step 2, that there's a real struggle. Let's consider those. There's those who won't believe because they're either rebellious or the belligerent, and they're the center of the universe. They think they're very important, and the whole world and the universe revolves around them, and if it's not treating them right, then it's the universe's fault. Never taking any kind of real inventory of their own lives, and considers what they've done to damage their own lives. Like to point the finger at something else, and rather rarely do we look at ourselves. This is the first step. They come to the point where they come to step 2, and they have that struggle with belief in recovery. But what happens? They come to a recovery community, they look around themselves, and they say, all these people finding recovery and getting healthy, getting sober, enjoying sobriety, enjoying life, having fun with the fellowship of AA or NA. And they realize, well, wait a minute, if it's working for them, why can't it work for me? And so they have that question in the back of their mind, and then they begin to realize, maybe it can work for me. This can definitely happen because it's obviously working for them. Let it happen to me, and they begin to give up and say, okay, I'll give it a try. Which is exactly the point of step 2. Now, when you're going to step 2 and you're working with a sponsor or you're going to meetings, you don't have to get step 2 completely perfect in the beginning. You don't have to get it all together all at one time. These steps are principles that you live by, that you learn, that you grow into. You don't have to have it perfectly right. Are you paying attention? Did you hear me? My perfectionists that are out there, I think they have to get it all right in order to get sober. No, you just have to be willing to give it a try. A willingness, an openness, the humility to try, and the willingness to let the spiritual thing happen in your life. So you don't have to swallow it all. You just have to have that open mind. Now there's a saying in the 12 steps where you have contempt prior to investigation, which means before you even try something, you're already saying, nah, that ain't going to work. Well, if you have that kind of an attitude, you'll never benefit in trying anything. If you have contempt prior to investigation, even before you even looking into it, you're already saying, no, that's not going to work for me. How do you know until you try? Stay open and willing enough to try something new. Obviously, the things you've been trying have not been working, right? The going to the gym, the taking extra vitamins, mixing it with milk like it says in the book. In the big book, somebody even mixed it with milk to try to make it better, make it healthy. Taking the pills do you remember in the old days, the antabuse? That therapy that Shadel had, the aversion therapy where you would take a medicine, drink, and it would make you violently ill. People will try anything to try to get sober, but they realize that, that doesn't work. They've even had that medication you take where you don't feel drunk. You don't feel drunk at all. And what does a real alcoholic or drug addict do? They push the test button. They'll keep drinking to see if it works. So nothing's really changed. So you tried everything. A lot of people have tried many things to try to find sobriety. These guys that worked the 12 steps, they have found, I believe, the jewel, the secret that really allows them to enjoy the life that they're supposed to have. So for those that don't want to believe or can't believe or don't have a concept of a God, then use AA as your higher power. These guys that have found recovery, I'd be more than willing to let you experiment with that concept. You go to meetings, you read your literature, you call your sponsor, you do service work for other people, you get out of yourself, and all of a sudden something begins to change in you. And you find that eventually the compulsion and the obsession go away. And you've gone a whole week without even thinking about it. And you just have to sit back and say, hey, something's happening. And it's simply because you've been working the steps, you've been living the principles, you've been getting into the fellowship. And now you've begun to change. Remember I said last time, your addiction is living off of you? So if you change that thing in you that it's using against you, then chances are you'll find the sobriety. Chances are, little by little, you'll start taking the power away from your addiction, your drug of choice, and you'll start living sober and free and happy and content and even hopeful. So use that same higher power, because as your higher power, if you're using AA, it's the same surrender, the same trust that people that do believe in God use. You believe that the process can work. You trust in your sponsor. You trust in the sober community to not steer you wrong, but to give you the right information you need to help you stay on that sober path. So if you are in that place where you're absolutely not going to go to a higher power, such as God, then start with your home group perhaps, and maybe that can start that process of you beginning to learn how to trust. Okay? Because step 2 is about coming to believe that there is something out there that can help you. Just saying that phrase, think about it. What does that engender? It engenders hope, doesn't it? When you come to believe that there is a power greater than you that can restore you, faith and hope start to spring up in your life. And that's what step 2 really wants you to experience. And to see that it's possible that you can have that hope. Because before, when you were in your addiction, there was no hope, was there? You had no idea how you were going to get out of this thing. And it wasn't willing to give you any kind of clues, was it? So we got pretty desperate out there. Yeah. The second type of person that the literature talks about, that the book talks about, is those who once had a faith, but then they lost it. And in my experience working with addiction, these were the toughest ones. It was much easier for me to work with those who never believed and introduce to them some spiritual principles in their life than those who once had it and lost it for one reason or another. And we'll get into that. But they are. And sometimes it's because they have negative baggage from church. There, I said it. Negative baggage from church. Now let me talk to my church members out there. Church folk, it matters how we talk to people. It matters if we're judging people. It matters if we're giving those glances and those looks. You know the ones I'm talking about. It matters that the way we treat people that are wounded in our churches, that are coming to us for help. It matters how we address this issue with our church members. The Christian church, someone said, is the only army that shoots its wounded. Unfortunately, it's a very true axiom. We need to be careful and more loving, don't we? We need to understand. If you don't know how to deal with it, find somebody that can. Because there are some people even in the church that are finding sobriety. They come to church, they enjoy it, have a great time, and when they find somebody that needs help in this area, they're more than willing to do their best to help them out. They don't need to be judged. Okay? Now that's to the church members. Now you guys that are out there that have been in the church and have lost your faith because of those kinds of circumstances, please let me be the first to apologize to you. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Find a church community that can love you through this process, that cares about you, that can help you, and won't judge you. All right? And if I can help you, leave a comment, get in touch with me. You know, let's begin to talk, because I'd love to help you out. And sometimes they don't come back, and it's tough for them, those who once had a faith, because they tried life with God and then they tried life without God, and they got the same results, and they were left confused. There's a lot of people that do this. They saw God perhaps maybe their approach had something to do with it. They saw God as somebody that if they just prayed the right prayer, he would answer. It's like telling my age, putting a quarter in the machine and getting a Coke out. Remember when it was a quarter? A long time ago. So putting your money in the machines, and what is it, $1 now, right? You put your money in the machine, the Coke comes out. You even push the button, which kind you want. And we approach God the same way. Maybe we look at God as a Santa Claus that's supposed to answer or give us what we want. And if it doesn't happen, then I don't believe, because he didn't fulfill my needs. He didn't answer my will. And we get the cart before the horse. We think that he's supposed to respond to us instead of us responding to him. And so if we have that kind of approach in our spiritual journey with God, it's not going to go very far, because that's just not the way he works. Yes, he wants a relationship. Yes, he wants to answer our prayers, but it's on his terms. When we have a right standing with him, when we stand before him as we ought to, with a little bit of humility and a little bit of peace and a little bit of he's the higher power and I am not kind of an attitude, we'll get better results. So when he didn't respond, you walked away, and now you're here with this thing wrapped around your neck, this ball and chain, it's dragging you down, and now you need help from a power that's greater than you. Now what do you do? How do you use all of this stuff to help you get into recovery? So you have tried following your drug of choice for quite a while. I don't know how many years you've been into it, but you have surrendered your faith. You have surrendered your will, and it has been held captive by your drug of choice. What you once thought and took because you thought it was going to help you, you exercised the same faith and hope that you used to give to God, didn't you? And let me talk to my brothers and sisters that have been in the church, that are in the grips of addiction. The faith that you used just before you took your drink, or just before you got lit up, or high, or however you want to put it, the belief you had that it was going to help you, the hope that you had that it was going to put you in that right place, all of those are spiritual exercises that you've given over to that power that's greater than you. Why don't you try giving that kind of faith, hope, trust, belief back to God and see what happens. And come to believe that that power that's greater than you can restore you. And you give that kind of faith, hope, and trust to God, I think you'll get better results than what you got from your drug of choice. But that's just me being cynical. But you know what I mean. You give that same hope and faith to a power greater than you that wants to help you and bless you, to a God that loves you and cares about you. You're going to get far better results from that experience, I guarantee you, than from your drug of choice. So again, consider your approach to God. I want you to consider those guys that have once been in the church that were there and lost it. Consider that your approach to God and what it was like. Was it a matter of you were expecting more and more from him? My dog wants to be in the video. It's okay, baby. Were you treating him like a Santa Claus? Was he like a concession stand for you? You put your quarter in and you're supposed to get your prayer answered? Who was the higher power in that relationship between you and he in the past? Was it balanced or unbalanced? Was the cart before the horse, or did you put the horse there? Chances are, if you didn't get any good results and you weren't having that experience, then maybe there was something wrong with the approach. Step 2 gives you the opportunity to readdress the way you've been approaching God. Remember, he's the sovereign and we are not. He has all the power and we do not. He has all the means and we do not. So if we give him the opportunity and come to believe that he can help us, why don't you try and let him help you? Okay? And the guys in AA will help you along that route. Also consider the quality of your faith in connection with the quantity of your faith or your activities of your faith. Let me explain it this way. You can go to church, you can pay your tithe, you can even preach sermons and teach the Bible lessons, you can feed the homeless, you can do all sorts of things, activities, and be involved in all of those things in your church, sing in the choir, you name it, whatever it is. All well and good. Nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with doing any of that. But if you think that is going to increase your faith, you got it backwards. Sometimes we think if we're so busy, then God will protect us. Like a genie in a bottle, or maybe a good luck charm. Well, if I'm doing all these things, why isn't he doing this? And that's the question in our mind. Why didn't he keep me sober? Why didn't he keep me sane? Well, because God is a God that's not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. But more on that in step 3. I don't want to get ahead of myself. If you're trusting in the quantity of things you're doing in church and not the quality of the things you're doing in church, then maybe you need to change that approach. If you only have to do one thing in the church that God is moving you to do, then do that well. Let the quality of your faith be evident. Let the quality of the connection. Because all that busy work that we do in church sometimes it's just busy work. Sometimes it's just to maintain the machine, unfortunately. And we miss the relationship aspect of why we do those things. Now, if your faith is strong and you have a great relationship with God and you're doing all this stuff, but you're doing it because you have that relationship and that faith and trust and hope, go for it, by all means. Every pastor would love all their members to be that way. So the humility that you began in step 1 by admitting you were powerless then can be used in step 2 to help lead us to faith. Because when you come to step 2 and you come to believe, and you're willing to believe that God can help you if you seek him out, then hope springs up in your heart. When is the last time you've had hope in your life? You guys that are stuck in your addiction today and you're viewing this video, when's the last time you had hope, real hope of a better life, a better home, a better marriage, a better relationship with your kids, better hope for your future and everything that God wants to give you? When is the last time you really had hope that stuff can really happen? For some of us, it's been a long, long time. Well, it doesn't have to be that long anymore. Step 2 tells you there is hope. There is a solution. There is a remedy. So the true humility you began in step 1 will lead you to a faith and a right relationship with God that will restore us to sanity. If you believe that, then start acting on it. Start giving him the permission to intervene into your life. But again, that's step 3. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me challenge you to do some things because you've come to realize that step 2 can be a reality for you. Number 1, ask God to give you a disdain, an enmity, a dislike for your drug of choice. Why do I challenge you to do that? Don't you already have that? Well, not necessarily. Enmity is something that God puts in our hearts. In the beginning, when you read your Bible and you see the Adam and Eve story, when Adam and Eve were in the garden and they took the fruit and then they were exposed and God pronounced sentences, you can't live in the garden no more, you're going to have to work, you're going to bear children, he told Eve, and it's going to be painful, and the whole order of things just changed with them, with their relationship between each other, with God, and even with nature itself. Because then they had to toil for their living and for their food, and wearing animal skins all of a sudden. It got pretty barbaric there for a little bit. So God said, I'm going to put enmity between your seed and the serpent's seed. Because he told them that there's just going to be this conflict between good and evil now. And I'm going to give you a disdain. By putting enmity in Adam and Eve, he gave them a disdain for the serpent and all the evil he wanted to bring upon them. So God put that in them to give them a repulse, to give them an opportunity to say, yeah, you know what, I don't want that anymore. So every time you think about it, every time you look at your drug of choice and you're like, man, what was I thinking? That's enmity. God put that in your heart. Ask him for that back. Because at some point in our lives, we blew that off and said, whatever, man. And we did what we did when we were in our addiction. So no, you have to ask for it back at first, at least, until it becomes very, very natural. So ask God to give you a disdain for that, a dislike for your drug of choice, and see what happens. Because if He's able to change our nature to the place where we don't even want it anymore, hey, miracle of miracles. All of a sudden you don't want it, you don't even like it anymore. If that's happened to you and you're in recovery, huge God moment, okay? Because you let Him. You let Him recreate in you a new heart, a new character, with new desires. And that's the power of step 2. It allows God to begin to do that kind of work in you. So step 1 is very, very important. Coming to believe. Coming to believe also gives God permission to begin a work in you that will transform your life. Now, what do I mean by giving God permission? Doesn't He already have permission? Of course, He has the ability to push His weight on you and make you do what you don't want to do, but He doesn't. Because love dictates that we have freedom of choice. We can do what we want, to choose Him or not. The power to choose is a very, very powerful thing. I mean, the power of the will that God has given us, it can make us or it can break us. Unfortunately, we've given our will over to our addiction way too long. If we give it to a power greater than us that can help us, you're going to be far better off. So He begins to transform your life. And I'll talk more about giving God permission in step 3. So when we have this belief and we have this faith, the doors of miracles begin to start opening up in our lives. All of a sudden, we start becoming transformed from what we were to what we ought to be, to what we can be. And when we're transformed in that way, recovery becomes very, very simple, because we have a power greater than us that is recreating in us a heart and a mind that can love sobriety, that can seek sobriety and Him, our higher power, more than anything else in this world. And so when we get to that point, step 2 becomes real in our lives. So I know it's a challenge to come to believe in a power if we have that negative baggage from our past. We can let that negative baggage rule us or run us or keep us away from our higher power, or we can say, you know what, this is the time that I need to heal and recover and get better and allow God to change my life. Why don't you give Him a try and see what happens? It is a completely voluntary thing. And again, like we said before, you don't have to get all of step 2 in the beginning. It's a growing process. And as time goes on, you'll get it, because He'll begin to work in your life in a way that you never thought possible. So thank you for watching me. That's all I got for you tonight. You take care of yourself. If you like the video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. I'll be doing this every Friday night. I'm playing catch up now because I've just figured out how to get these videos on YouTube. But I'm doing this on Facebook as well. Time with Chaplain Kenneth. If you want to look me up on Facebook, you can. If you want to wait for my videos to come out on Friday nights, and that's fine with me as well. So you take care of yourself. God bless you. Pay attention to yourself. Okay? Take care. We'll see you next time.